Hey guys, welcome back. For those of you that are new, my name is Kate and this is my channel, so I've been thinking. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. Yes, I meant it when I said I was gonna try and start making videos once a week. Somehow Friday became my day. Let's not knock it. So today's video is gonna be kind of intense. I'm sure you guys can guess why from the title. So here's the thing, is that I'm gonna desperately try to be super concise and direct and not all over the place with this video, but you guys know. Look at the title. It's intense, because hello, we're talking about death today. Let's just say that this is gonna be rough. And also, just so all of you know ahead of time, my dog Estrella really likes to be a part of videos now. She's actually like between my feet and trying to get attention, so if the camera shakes at all, I apologize. She keeps hitting the stand, and she can tell that I'm kind of anxious, so she's trying to calm me down, which is weird. I've never been anxious making a YouTube video before, but the truth is like I've really wanted to make this video for a really long time, like legitimately since I started on YouTube, which is hysterical because like most people say that and they're like, we've got like 100 videos over 5 years. I'm like, I have 5 over 2. But hey, you know, like start small. So here's the thing, is that she hit the stand. Sorry guys. So here's the thing, is that okay, I'm just gonna get into it. So the biggest reason why I wanted to make this video, sorry, I'm gonna try and get it straight out of here, guys. Sorry, she like does not realize she does not fit in this tiny space. The biggest thing about this video is that I really want to touch on the main things I don't feel like get addressed when it comes to this specific part of life. Because like death is a part of life, unfortunately. Like we all know this, like it is the one inevitability, which sounds super dark, but like, I mean, unfortunately, at some point all of life does pass on. I really feel like, especially in Western culture, we're like really afraid of death. I don't know if it's because we're like afraid of it for ourselves. I don't know if it's because we're, oh, there's Estrella. I don't know if it's because we have this like impending fear of being forgotten, which I think is a big part of it. But above all, what I think it is that I think that people, like when someone dies, it makes them like really have to be aware, whether they want to or not, of their own mortality. I think humans in general, we get really deep into that whole like invincibility concept, or complex, I guess is a better word for it. We all are like, we're so invincible, we're gonna live forever. And I'm making light of this because truth is, like, everyone who knows me knows this is a legit thing. I'm not even making this up. Legit life goal for me is I want to live till I'm 107. The reason why I have that random number, I was born in 1993. I can't just make it to 100 because I've only seen 2093, and I want to make it till 107 because I want to see the year 2021. Or excuse me, 2100. 2021 is only 2 years away. I'll make it. So like I'm not making fun of that concept of like not wanting to die and like that, you know, we shouldn't be afraid of it. Like it makes sense why we are. But the problem is that I feel like that has then created this whole problem of we just don't talk about it. We don't talk about, like, people my age, we don't talk about where we want to be buried, if we want to be buried, you know, what we want at our funerals, do we want to have a funeral, like, you know, what would we want done with all of our things. No one wants to make a living will, like everyone's super afraid of those things. Well, I think it's important to talk about it. So we're going to today. So above all, I think that like the number one thing I'm going to start with is talking about how I've noticed that people are like really uncomfortable with comforting someone who is grieving. Now here's the thing, is that there is like obviously fresh grief, like when someone literally just passes, like maybe it's a few hours to a few days, sometimes even a few weeks. And then there's like the long-term ones when it's like the anniversaries, like the big and small things that are just setting them off because it makes them miss people. Both of those things, people lose their minds on how to be there. They like don't know how to do it. They act like this is the most terrifying, most awkward, weirdest thing in the world to watch someone go through. And guess what? We all do it. I remember a time when I was like that too. I had no idea how to be there for people. I was super weird. Or I went over the top and was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Can I get you anything? Can I hug you? Or do you need, and like, here's the thing. The reality is that technically none of it's wrong. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. Technically, wanting to be removed from being there for someone who's grieving and wanting to be overly there for someone who's grieving, neither of those is wrong. It's that you've got to remember that everyone grieves differently. And so that in of itself is something that we never talk about. We never talk about what it looks like and how to help someone. And like, by the way, it's okay to ask, do you want me to be here for you? Do you need me to leave you alone? Can I help you? You know, do you need to just talk? Do you want to be left alone? Like any of those things. We don't talk about it. So like people are just like, bye, and just like run away. Or they're just like, oh my God, they are crying. I don't know what to do. Run away. And like I'm trying to make kind of a joke about it because it's actually really frustrating. That's what I do. I make jokes about everything now. But no, like it's actually really bad. I feel like if people understood that grief happens in different ways and different times to different people, then maybe this wouldn't be so weird. So I guess maybe the first thing that we should kind of address is the stages of grief. So there are 5 stages of grief. I actually looked this up to make sure I had it right. So there are 5 stages of grief, like the 5 main ones. Like obviously there's intermittent emotions you'll have in between, but these are like the main ones that society has recognized. So number 1 is denial and isolation. I personally think that shock should be added in there. I actually almost feel like shock should be like the first part of it, because I almost feel like that is even before denial, because like I think shock is like its own thing in how you respond to this kind of stuff. And I'll talk about that in a second. Then you have anger and sadness. These two are very interconnected and they literally flip-flop and get mingled together constantly. Then we have bargaining. The bargaining one in regards to like general grieving, like from someone passing, I personally haven't seen anyone do this, but I do know it's a thing. I know that some people, like maybe the way that they're talking about is like, oh, I'd give anything for this person to come back, you know, like why did this person have to go, why couldn't it have been me? So maybe that's kind of what they mean by the bargaining. I do know that like grieving isn't just when someone dies, but that's obviously what we're talking about. Like the other way I've seen bargaining is like grieving like from a loss of like a major relationship or a marriage, like, you know, the bargaining of like, what can I do to make this relationship work, even if it's like it has to be over. So that's the other ways I've seen it, but bargaining in regards to this, haven't seen too much of that, but like I said, probably more like I wish they were still here kind of thing. And then there's acceptance. So I'm gonna try and break this down as concisely as I can from what I've personally seen. So to give you guys kind of an idea of like why I felt so compelled to make this video, yes, I have experienced death myself. I have actually had 3 instances with death. I have had my grandfather dying of natural causes when I was 15, almost 16. I had a friend commit suicide in 2016, and I had my dog die, and I had to put her down, and she literally died in my arms. So I've actually like experienced this stuff in a lot of different ways. Like I'm very grateful I haven't had to experience like, you know, the kinds like that ER nurses have to go through, which is like the really intense, like traumatic ones. But like, I feel like those ones kind of cover like the basic craziness, which is why I wanted to make this video. Because I've seen this and I've experienced it, and I noticed it was something that just wasn't really getting talked about. So the one when my grandpa died, like that was kind of my first experience with realizing that the number one thing that I think that death usually kind of brings to people is an awareness of mortality, which, you know, I was kind of talking about earlier. You know, when you're a teenager, mortality isn't really even something you understand for obvious reasons, like you're a teenager. When he died, all of a sudden it was like I realized anyone could die. Like anyone. Like no one's invincible. literally anyone could drop dead at any second on me. Which, I mean, it sounds super heavy and super scary, but like legit, that was 100% where my brain went. And I felt like that was important because it makes you realize that, like, you know, fighting with someone and then them driving away, or, you know, again, fighting with someone and hanging up the phone, and like anytime like you have altercations or like little things that you want to be mad and you want to be petty about, and like you're just like, oh, they're just like being so rude. And I'm being over dramatic on purpose, by the way. I'm not trying to not disregard. I'm not trying to discount that kind of stuff is legit, and like sometimes you end up in fights with people that are so bad that you're like, legit, I have to be gone right now. It's made me, I'm not gonna lie, mortally afraid of fighting with people and them trying to walk out on me. This is actually something my fiance and I have had to work so hard in our relationship on, because when he needs to like remove himself when we have a fight, I'm like, please don't leave me, you're gonna die. And he's like, oh my God, I'm fine. Just like, let me walk out for like 5 minutes. And so like I've had to really like learn to let go of that fear. But it was like, that's where mine came from, was like legit realizing anyone could die. And yes, I know that made me sound crazy. It's fine. He knows what he's marrying. So the other thing is that it also made me realize, and this is for me personally, like this is just my own thing that I realized. I'm not trying to, I guess, like convince anyone of anything. I'm not even sure what word to use with this particular topic, but I had struggled with religious views for a lot of my childhood. Like I was baptized Catholic, and I didn't really follow religion very much. I was in that whole like crisis of faith thing, you know, like not sure what I believed in. And the biggest thing I was struggling with right around when my grandpa died was the concept of like life after death. Like, is that even a thing? It sounds like a fairy tale. Like, how could that possibly be a thing? And here's the thing, like when he died, well, how many times could I say thing? When he died, suddenly I was aware that even if it's not real, I want it to be. Because here was this amazing individual that I wanted so badly to still exist after he was gone. Like I was like, how could such a pure spirit, like, and that was where that concept of spirit and soul and all that like kind of clicked for my brain at that point in my life, was like, how could such a pure spirit who has so much energy and life in them just disappear? Like how? So I ended up kind of realizing that like, even though I'm agnostic, like kind of more spiritual, like I don't follow any denomination religiously, but I did really like the concept of like life after death after that. And so moving forward with that, that was like my one experience with death when I was younger. And then in 2016, I had a friend take his own life. I'm not going to go into details of how he took his own life. I'm not going to say his name, not because I don't want to like memorialize him. In fact, I'm sure you guys have seen these in my other videos, but I actually like have memorialized him. I know that's a really awkward angle, but like that's actually his handwriting from his journal. This paw print is actually my dog's paw print from when she died. Let's see if you guys can see that. Like, it's pretty damn big. So like literally the only two tattoos on my body are from death. Which sounds super crazy and like really over the top. But you know, that's just kind of the thing. So when, like, I didn't want to like, I don't want to say my friend's name, honestly, more out of respect for his family. I don't want this to become something where like it's like a clickbait thing. I don't even know what to call it. Like, I just want to talk about the experience. He is memorialized like forever. And for those of you, in case you're wondering, if you didn't fully get a glimpse of that, my tattoo says what you do is 90% of who you are. So basically when he died, obviously suicide is gnarly. Like, that's like the biggest understatement in the world. Suicide is awful for so many reasons. A lot of people view it as like, you know, it's cowardly, and you know, it was a permanent solution for a temporary problem, and it's really unfair, and it's really selfish, and I'm trying to like think of all the things I've heard about it. Regardless, suicide sucks. And after personally now going through it and seeing the aftermath and like understanding kind of what happened with it, like just death in general sucks. The whole thing about when my friend died that made it so crazy, and this is why I think that shock, honestly, I think there should be 6 stages of grieving. I think that shock should be the number 1, because like the first one is technically like denial and isolation. No, legit, I think shock needs to be its own category because not everyone's in denial. Like, I don't think that shock and denial are, I want to say synonymous, whatever. Like I don't think they're interchangeable with each other. I think that when you find out someone's died, I feel like you're in shock, and that's why you hear people saying, no, 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 it can't be, because your brain literally freezes. Like, it's like, what? There's no way. Like, and I think maybe that is where the denial stuff comes from. It's not that you legit have convinced yourself this person didn't die. You just freeze. You go numb. Your brain can't like process freaking anything. And that can sometimes last for a while. Like, that's why you hear a lot of people talk about feeling really numb after someone dies, because they like legit cannot turn their emotions back on. They've just shut them down, a lot of times completely against their own will. Like, that's why sometimes you'll see people when someone has just died and like, you're like, why aren't they crying? Because sometimes you don't cry. Because sometimes you're numb. Because like that part of it doesn't always kick in. And that's where, like I said, this is why it's really important to understand the different stages of grief. Some people immediately go to anger. They're like, you gotta be shitting me. I can't believe this person's gone. Like, how dare they? You know, we need to sue the hospital. We need to sue the people in the ambulance. You know, we need to sue the people in the hospice. Like, you know, whatever it is, like, you need to just sue all the people and someone screwed something up somewhere. And again, I'm making this light on purpose because it's not a joking matter. Like, people who get angry about it, people are usually like, oh, why are they getting so mad? Like, you know, being mad's not gonna bring this person back. No shit, Sherlock, we know. Like, we're aware that getting angry isn't gonna bring this person back. And I feel like people don't get that. Like, we're aware most of the time that the way we're reacting doesn't make sense to you guys. But at that point, truthfully, we don't care. And so like, then there's where like the sadness kicks in. Like, when my friend died and I first heard about it, my reaction to anything super intense is I start bawling. Whether it's panic or it's anger or it's grief, whatever it is, like I just start crying because like I'm so overwhelmed, I don't know what to do. So I cried the whole way to the house where we were all meeting up, and I cried the whole time there. And like, mind you, I had only known my friend for about 6 months. I was kind of the person who like accidentally got like swooped into everything. Like, we were all hanging out. We all would do like this great hangout like once a week together. And I think part of why like I was part of the group that got told immediately was like, we literally had just been all hanging out that night. Like, the night that he killed himself was the night we had all been hanging out together. So that was kind of part of like how I got involved in that. And I saw all of the stages of grief. And here's what else I also saw, and it was my first time ever seeing this, and this is when I started realizing this is messed up how we normally deal with this. So as the process went on, you know, as we just the weeks that felt like months, and we all would hang out and try to make sense of everything and deal with it how we could, I noticed that my friends were very loving to each other, in the sense that like, whatever someone needed, if they didn't want to go out because they just could not that night, even if they had already said they were down, no one pushed them and said, well, you should still come, like it'll be really good for you. No, they were like, take care of yourself, just let us know how you are. And like, if anyone hadn't heard from someone for a few days, like unless we absolutely knew that person was okay and like did not want to be bothered, we left them alone. Obviously there are circumstances where you're very careful with that, but like, we knew what everyone's boundaries were, and we knew who we could check to see who had heard from them. If someone went out with us and then just lost their shit, however we knew they grieved, we would be there. Like, I knew one person who was this person's cousin. Her way of dealing with everything was to take care of everyone else, because it was easier for her to take care of everyone else rather than feel in those moments, because when she would feel, she'd lose it. She would just crack. So like, if she started to cry, like, I'll never forget this. I tried to hug her the first time I saw her cry, and she's like, don't touch me. Like, don't touch me. If you touch me, I'm gonna lose it. Like, I'm gonna lose my shit. And that was actually a little intense for me, because that was the first time I'd ever seen someone like actively say, do not touch me when I'm crying. And excuse me, I felt like it was really important to hear because, hey, by the way, like not everyone wants to be touched when they're grieving. Oh, okay, so like me trying to smother them is not going to help them. It's going to probably make them panic, make them get really mad, make them feel even worse, and potentially like make them have a breakdown that they're not ready to have in front of other people. And that's the thing, everyone's like, oh, you got to get it out, you got to deal with your emotions. Yes, 100%, you have to deal with your emotions when this happens to you. There's a when and a where and a time, like, you know, the time that you choose to deal with it. For me, I'm very much an open person. I cried like everywhere. I didn't even care. Like I was like, whatever, I'm just gonna cry. And I actually had a friend who, like, I felt really bad because like I was pretty much, excuse me, it's really dry here in Utah and my apartment has like no airflow. I had a friend who was like, you know, I'm actually kind of jealous of the fact that you can cry. Because I was like, I felt really awkward because I was the only one crying, and I was like, I feel really bad. I feel like people think that I'm like pretending, and I'm not. Like I can't do fake crying. Like that's not something that my tear ducts will ever allow me to do. And she's like, no, I think it's just that like we can't get it out and you can, and it's weird. And she's like, you know, I really wish that I could because like I can't get it out right now. So that was kind of an interesting concept. So like everyone has those different moments at different times. And here's the thing, like grief comes in waves, guys. Like you can see someone who like just lost their spouse or just lost their parents or just lost a child or just lost a friend or, you know, whatever the number is, or excuse me, not the number, whatever the relationship is. And they can come into work the next day and you're going to think they're fine. And when you find out that they just lost someone, you're going to be like losing your shit, being like, why are you here? And like, they're going to look really fine. But the reason why is that they may still be in the numb shock stage. Hasn't hit them yet. It could be that coming to work is letting them focus on something else other than being at home crying. And it's good for them. And they want to put off the waves for a little while so that way they can feel human again. Sometimes it's just that it's not that they don't feel it. It's that they just can't be in it right now. And also, like, sitting there acting really awkward when you do see someone crying who, like, you just found out had someone die, and you're like, I don't know what to do. Like, here's the thing, is that it is okay, like I said, to ask, you know, I don't know what, or like, be honest, like, be like, I don't know what to do for you. Like, what do you need from me? And sometimes they're not going to respond, because they don't even know. I had a friend do that to me recently. Like I had some really intense news about somebody and I like lost my shit in front of half my coworkers and I just like freaked out. And my one friend who I'm really close with was like, she literally was standing there and she was doing like the little like awkward inching forward thing where she was like, I want to be here for you and like I really want to hug you, but like I don't know if you want to be touched right now. And I just like, I was frozen. Like I was in panic, freaking out mode, and I literally was like standing there. I think I had my hand on my head, which is like my protection mode. I don't know why. It's like my way of like trying to get my shit together, like hold myself by my head. And I didn't respond to her, and I said, I don't know, like I don't know what I need right now. And later we talked about it once I had calmed down, and I said, you know, you did the right thing. You did the right thing by asking me and like checking in with me and just being honest and saying you didn't know. I had another coworker who just like kind of like dove out because she was like, I didn't know what to do for you, and like my reaction when someone's upset is to hug them, and I just had this strong feeling like you didn't want to be hugged, and like I wanted to be supportive but I didn't know what to do. And that was honest too. Like everyone has different ways they're gonna deal with it. What is not okay is to I guess just like be awkward about it and not acknowledge it. I guess is the best way to word that, to just do the whole like, okay, and like say nothing. Like, unless you know for a fact that that person is like, don't talk about this. And very rarely are they gonna be like that. Like, that just makes it worse because that increases that feeling of isolation where grief already makes you feel like you're on an island alone. It makes you feel so removed from people. Like I felt that really intensely when my dog died, because like when my friend died, like there was a huge group of people who could like really share in the grief, and like we could all reach out to each other, and like I mean we literally had like a 24-hour like chat group, like where we were all talking together, and like pretty much like we had like nonstop support about it, because like we were all going through the same thing, obviously in different variations depending on how deep the relationship was, but like we all were still going through the fact this person was gone. When my dog died, it was a completely different experience, because number one, she was an animal, so like some people are worried about that, and number two, she was mine. Like I had really good support in some ways and really bad support in others. I actually had someone say to me, and I'm not gonna even say relationship-wise who they were, because it like really hurt. They were like so confused why I was still crying over my dog a year later, and they were like, well, you should just get over it. Like, it's been a year, I don't understand. Bruh, do not say that to somebody. Like, I don't care how insignificant the relationship is to you. That might have been that person's entire world. And even if it's an animal or an ex-spouse, or like, it doesn't matter. Like, who gives a shit? Death is death. Grief is grief. Like, if they're crying, they're still in it. They're still feeling it. And I have heard of people doing that to people like years later. Like I had someone I was talking to the other day who was talking about, there was a woman who, she lost her mom in a car accident a couple of years ago, and now she doesn't celebrate Mother's Day, even though she has kids, because like it's too hard for her. And I guess like sometimes her friends will be like, oh, she should just like, she should still celebrate Mother's Day for her kids, and you know, it's really selfish of her. And I'm like, yeah, she doesn't view it that way. Like she can't be in that celebratory thing when like it reminds her of her own mom. Like, you know, telling her to get over it for her kids, like, it doesn't mean shit. Like, sometimes you can't like put someone else ahead of whatever you're feeling just to do something for somebody else. Like, legitimately. So Estrella, my fiance surprised me with her about a month after the year anniversary of when Jewel died, and I'll be honest with you, was not ready for her. He didn't do it to be disrespectful, and I'm gonna do a whole nother video about like animal death and grieving, but basically like we had a lot of problems right off the bat with her, because not because of anything she did wrong. She's an amazing dog and I love her cute little face, but I wasn't ready yet. And a lot of people will say that to people, like when, you know, especially if someone has like a relationship-wise death, like, you know, a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend who dies, and they're like, well, maybe it's time, maybe you should try and start dating, maybe you should try and meet people. Yo, dog, sometimes that's it for them. That's it. Like, it doesn't matter if they have to live the next 50 years alone. For some people, that's it. They don't want anyone else. Just like when people lose a child and they're like, well, you can still have another one. You think they don't know that? You think they don't know? You think that maybe they don't feel guilty for maybe someday wanting another child, feeling like it's replacing the one that they lost? Like, and I understand like that a lot of people, they say these things because they really don't know. People say a lot of stuff that they think is helpful, and they just don't get that it's really not in these situations. And overall, like, you gotta realize too that it's not always like the big milestones and the big anniversaries that are going to be the toughest. For most people it is. Like for instance, like I was okay during the, was it the first or the second anniversary when my friend died? I think it was both. Like the first one was kind of rocky because I was still in Portland and like we were all still kind of going through it. The second one I was here and I was happy, and I was with my fiance and I was with my friends, and like, you know, so like I knew that it was a thing, but it didn't affect me. Whoa, this year it affected me. I still am not sure why. And sometimes you're not gonna realize why certain things are things you don't do anymore. So like my friend died on Halloween. Apparently everyone in my office is super into Halloween. Didn't know that. Like they were all like dressing up and, you know, taking pictures and being like, everyone needs to be dressed up and get in the spirit. And I come to work and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so not in it this year. And truthfully, I haven't done anything for Halloween since my friend died. And not because like I don't hate Halloween, like I don't think it's stupid. Someday, like when I have kids, I'd love to take them trick-or-treating, but for me, like Halloween kind of lost its oomph for obvious reasons. And I hadn't even really realized how much it had lost its oomph for me until this year. And like I am like in my office, I'm like pretty much the only person who's not dressed up and like refuses to put anything on. And my coworkers start kind of teasing me, being like, oh, you're being a party pooper, like why aren't you wearing anything? So my coworkers knew that I had someone die. Like I'm very open about like what my tattoos mean and stuff, and but I had to like very bluntly be like, yeah, today's the anniversary of when my friend killed himself, and they were all like, oh. And it was kind of like out of self-preservation. I was like, yeah, please don't ask me why I'm not dressed up today. Like legit leave it. Like I can't today. I don't know why it's affecting me. It just is. It's not a good day. And sometimes that happens. And you can have anniversaries where you're okay, where you're so busy that you don't really realize it's past, or that you just have other things that are keeping you okay enough that year, and then like a couple of days later you'll lose your shit and you don't even know why. Or, you know, like you'll suddenly come across something that reminds you of them, you know, a month later when you were totally fine the month before for the anniversary, and you just are a wreck. 4 days. And the truth is like this year, like, so last year when was the first anniversary of my dog's death, like I like definitely was sad. I was not as bad as I was expecting. This year, whew, yeah, different story. I like cried the entire week, and my poor fiance like had to hold me like pretty much all week. Like I couldn't stop crying, and my puppy was super sweet. Like, you know, she was cuddling with me and like keeping me company, and so was my cat. So it was like kind of like I had my own little like bubble of like, you know, hey, like this is a hard time, but it's okay. We're gonna get through it. But like some people, like, it's just, it is what it is. Like, you know, some people are gonna cry, some people are not. Some people are gonna be really, really angry for a long time. Some people are gonna have legit personality changes where like, they're never really the same again. Like you guys hear that kind of stuff all the time, but it's kind of just like if that person was a big part of what shaped their personality, like I'm gonna be honest with you, like a big part of that goes away. Like, you know, one of the people who was connected with this person, it was her cousin who passed away, who was also her best friend. And she kind of changed after he died. And, you know, like, I get that now, as a lot of people do. And it's hard to explain to people. It's hard to reconcile that may legitimately be something that you just never go back to, or if you do, it takes you years before you feel normal again, like where you start to kind of level out and become like you were before. And so it's just that there's a lot of, there's just so many different ways that this can be dealt with that we just don't acknowledge. And like I said, there is no set way to help someone through this. Like you guys have really got to pay attention and learn the people around you. Number one, like if you know someone naturally when they're upset shuts down, don't immediately try to hug them because you don't be surprised if they freak the fuck out and they're like, don't touch me. And like, even if your way of wanting to help and like your way of trying to fix this is to hold them and to be there for them, and like it's hurting you that they won't let you help, you have to accept it. They're not ready for it. They don't want it, and you can't force it on them. Some people will try really hard to help everybody else. Like they don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, so they'll just like accept it, even though they're like, I like legitimately don't want to be touched, or I legitimately do not want to be around people. Like my friend who would ask me over for tea, she legit did not like being touched. She tolerated people hugging her all the time after my friend died, but she hated it. And it took me a long time to like finally like get to the point where I would stop asking for hugs, because I realized she doesn't want it. She did not want it. And you know, like that was like, it's very respectful. Like you've got to learn respect. And just know that people will notice that. They'll appreciate it. And even if they don't say anything sometimes for years, they're gonna acknowledge at some point, whether they actually say it to you or internally, that you got them and you respected them, and if everyone could just learn how to do this, I feel like this would be so much easier. Like, death is already hard enough. Like, the side effects, like the long-term side effects of like this person now being gone, and like the way society acts and the way no one feels like they can talk about it, and you know, they want to most of the time to keep this person alive, and sometimes they don't want to right away because it's still too much, and then someday they're gonna just start talking about them. Like, you know, whatever they need is gonna come up. And all I can say is that, you know, just be loving, guys. Like, I know that everyone talks about, you know, oh, be love and all that stuff, but like legitimately, like the stuff I'm talking about and the stuff that I watched my friends do for each other when my friend died especially was just unconditional love. Just understanding that giving someone what they need may not be what you need, but it's what they need in this moment. And it may not be what's normal for you, but it's gonna be all that they can take. And in time, maybe they'll want what you're offering the way you want to give it. And if they ever don't, just try to learn to speak their language of what they need in that moment. Their, you know, I don't want to call it love language because it's not, but you know, their coping language, I guess. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I tried so hard to condense this video. As usual, I'm so sorry, it's very long, but I hope that I really covered all the pieces of this. I tried so hard to incorporate everything I could think of with this, and I just want you guys to know that if you ever have any questions about anything I talk about, please feel free to leave a comment down below. If you like this video and you think I did a good job covering it, please give it a like. If you also enjoy what you see in general, I realize I don't edit my videos, I apologize, but hopefully they're entertaining / informative enough that you'll want to keep seeing what I've got. If so, go ahead and click the subscribe button down below. As of right now, that's all I've got for you guys, so enjoy the rest of your Friday and your weekend, and I will see you next time.